Hello everyone. Today we're going to learn how to import users, addresses, and stations into Inform Voice. If we have to assign an interesting amount of users and stations into the system, mm, let's say more than 20, mm, um, it would be better to use an import procedure instead of assigning each of the users manually. In order to see how do we need to prepare the information to be imported, it's always useful to see how the system exports its information so we can mimic the same format to import the information in. So let's export the information we added already in the system. Mm. So we will go to the File menu and we will find an Export item. We can export the lines, which would be the stations, the extension information, which would be the addresses, or the user information. And we can do it all the three items in just one file or each item separately. I did an export beforehand of each of the items separately, so I can show you how they look like. So I saved it here in my documents folder, and let's take a look at the lines file. You can see it's a CSV file, and the format of the CSV file, we'll take a look at this later. Format of the CSV file is UTF-8. That's important to remember. So as you can see, and if you remember when we actually made the manual entry of the station, we entered much more information than the few items you can see here. Uh, so how do we do the import and make sure that we keep all that information that we originally entered? Well, let me show you to you in a second. The way we're going to do it, instead of using CSV files, I'm going to open up an Excel file. This Excel file was built by our product engineers, and we are always happy to share that with you. You just call our support line, and we are happy to share the latest and updated version of it, where some of the columns in this spreadsheet are actually made up from information on other columns. The columns labeled here in red um, don't need to be assigned manually. They are actually built from information of other columns. So let's explain briefly what information do we actually need. Well, obviously we will need the information of the user first name, last name, its extension number, and its login name. Okay, that would be the information we would need. We would also need the MAC address of the station that that user will be assigned to. I made up MAC addresses, so they are not real, but so you can take the MAC addresses from a barcode label on the terminal. They even show up on the box where the terminal is shipped. So there are many ways to get the MAC address we have without having to open the box even. We also need to know the phone manufacturer, and the phone manufacturer in a way that Inform Voice understands it. So if you go back to the phones tab here, stations tab, you can see that we have When we add a station, we have Grand Stream. In case of the DT, we have several models of DT. Each one has its own manufacturer's name, and we have also several for the Polygon. SNOM has only one. Actually, we can find out from the export, which is the manufacturer's phone information that we need for the import. Now, how are we dealing with this, the rest of the information that's not being entered in this spreadsheet? Well, InformVoice uses a template method. It uses an existing station that was assigned manually as a template to get the information and copy it on another station. We already created 3 stations for each of the locations in our example. The station for Chicago location, the station for Orlando location, and a station for Las Vegas location. So what I'm going to do is to use those as template stations. And this is a column that's interesting here. We take Nancy Masters as a template, and we take all her information and we port it into Dan Carson user. And we will do the same with all those ones in the list. In case of Betty Williams would be another template, and Bonnie Jackson would be another template. So it's important for you to think how many different variants or flavors of station types we would have in the system in order to build the proper templates to have them ready to the import. Actually, you can use made up names because then you can delete those manual entries. You use them only for the import. What other important information do we need? Well, we will need the information for the station profile, which is the class of service of the station. Remember that we created three classes of service with 3 names. We didn't assign much information on them, but we created 3 names. So we have those names, which are based on the features that each group of stations are enabled, or toll restriction for each of the stations. Those are the parameters that control how many classes of service are we going to need in a specific implementation. So once we have that, we can assign user by user what station profile it's going to have. Then there is a field called authorization realm. I took the information from one of the existing stations. If you look at the station, I look here, I look under security, and then here I have a realm. Okay, so when I create it manually, the system assigned this train 7, which is kind of partially kind of the domain name of the implementation or part of the license. It doesn't matter much. Well, I will use this train 7. It really doesn't matter, but to keep the consistency, we will use that. There are 3 columns here that are particularly dependent on a certain type of NEC phone. We need to use, if we need to enable certain licenses to enable gigabit or button extensions, we need to label them here. And now if we scroll a little bit to the right, we will see another column with the user profile. Remember that we have a station profile and a user profile, which are used in different ways and in different moments in time. But for now, I just copy the same information of the station profile into the user profile, and I would be fine. Finally, we need to assign the zone the user is going to belong to. The example I'm building has 3 offices. In each office, I built a zone for each of them. So I have a zone for Chicago, a zone for Orlando, and a zone for Las Vegas. So I can assign individually which zone each new user is going to belong to. Those 2 columns, we don't need to worry much about them. Right now, this spreadsheet was built for both the Linux version and the Windows version, so those columns are used in the Windows version. And finally, those columns that are labeled in red, which we suppose we wouldn't touch, are related to a feature called user-centric feature of Inform Voice. It's a very interesting feature that is aimed into mobility or um, clients in computers or um, soft phones in computers. And so if you are not very familiar with that functionality or your customer is not going to use it for the moment, I would prefer to disable the user-centric feature. So I just put it 0 here. And then I would blank this offering column because this offering feature or this offering setting is related to user-centric. We will probably cover user-centric in another video, but for now, let's keep it this way. We want a user to be licensed, so I will keep this column enabled. So what I will do now is I will save this information. So how do I do it? Well, I save this information on a CSV format because that's the format I need to import into the system. So if I choose Save As and I choose the Excel workbook here, you will see that there are several ways to define or to save CSV. We have a CSV UTF-8 format. We have a CSV comma delimited. We have a CSV Macintosh. We have a CSV MS-DOS. Okay, which one do I choose? Well, I was doing some testing, and the one that is compatible with the import that InfoVoice uses is CSV comma delimited. So I will save it under CSV comma delimited. Okay, so file is saved. So I will copy that file into my Windows computer, which I'm using to manage InfoVoice, which I already did. And I will show you real quick how this file looks like. So I will open it up with Notepad++. It's a utility that's very useful for debugging. I recommend that you install it in the Windows computer that you use to install IFV Administrator. So here you have the actual CSV file. Look that the CSV file is separated by commas. And the fields don't have any single quote or double quote in between. This is the format we want. I would caution our international viewers that if you run Excel in Windows that's meant for other country or other region, Excel might change the separation character. It might use semicolon instead of comma, or it might enclose the fields in single brackets or double quotes. So we need to convert that output into this one. So we can use, for example, this text editor to make the proper changes and change the semicolon to a comma. Also, pay attention to the encoding. Mm. The encoding should be UTF-8. Mm. I show you that Excel is able to export in a format called CSV UTF-8, but it's not the UTF-8 format we need to. It converts it to another one. Now, Notepad++ is able to convert to the one we want. So if we end up having a different type here, if we see something different, we can convert the file to UTF-8 and then still use it. So it's very interesting. I have to click on the File menu. I will do Import. I will go and specify my file. Now, the users need an initial password. Then the users can change their passwords, but they need an initial password. So let's put an initial password. Okay, the import started. It will take a little bit to complete, and I will pause the video and resume it when the import finishes. Okay, the import has finished successfully. The system is asking me to restart some services. Before I do that, I will perform a last um, procedure here, which is the following. When we do the import, the information is stored into the InfoVoices database. The terminals use configuration files to be provisioned. So when I do a manual configuration, those configuration files are created automatically. When I do an import, I have to manually trigger the creation of those configuration files. So I will do that real quickly using the Tools menu, going to Configure IP phones, and for each brand of phone that I imported into the system, I will click on this Sync IP phone files. I won't select Reboot IP phones because the phones actually don't exist, but you might want to do that, right? So I will do it one by one for each of the models of phone. I had the NEC phones, and I also had the SNOM phones. So I will do SNOM, and I will sync the IP phone files. Okay, I did that. Let's check real quickly what we have. All right, we have a lot of users now. Good. So let's check one user. Double click. See, we have the password. We have the profile. It's not user-centric. We want it not to be user-centric. We have the address assigned. We have the preferred item assigned. And we have the proper zone assigned. Very good. Then if we want to check the stations, I also have a bunch of stations assigned. And then if I look at, for example, 2004, it was meant to be an Orlando station, which it is. The telephony area is Orlando. This is the class of service I chose for that particular user. Then if I look at the network parameter, I see the hub number was changed. If I look at the NEC tab in this case, we will see the SIP primary registered information, port number, the URLs that the microbrowser of the phone used. All that information was ported from the template station into this. Okay, now let's check the numbering plan. The numbering plan, I also have all the numbers. Mm. But let's check, for example, this extension. Okay, I can see the last name and the first name, everything is nice. But if you see the zone says Chicago. But the 2XXX numbers that I imported were meant to be Orlando. So what happened? Well, it turns out that the zone information cannot be, doesn't be, is not being exported. It cannot be imported into the extension information. I don't know exactly if this is by design or an issue, but let's fix that. Well, the easy way to fix it is to go to the actual zone, go to the zone Orlando, for example, and check the addresses of Orlando. As you see, there's only one address, and all the 2000 numbers should be here. Oh, I can add them. I go here, and I can easily do a multiple selection. I can do it with shift and ranges or with control. So pick each one, click, apply, and I'm done. They were moved from Chicago to Orlando. And let's do the same with Las Vegas. I go to addresses in Las Vegas. I see only one address. So I can reassign the zone, apply. There is another method that's a little bit more complicated, but I can always explain it to you. As you can see, I have Chicago as default zone and default telephony area. So if instead of using just one spreadsheet, I separate the spreadsheet by zones and I create one for each zone, when it's time to import the file for Orlando, I just go and change the zone to be default. And I can do it the same way with the telephony area. Okay, now Orlando is the default, so everything I import will use the zone and the telephony area from Orlando. And I can do the same with Las Vegas. This is another way, it's a little bit more indirect, but there's another way to make sure that the zone information and telephony area information is correct. But there's always way to, as I show you, do it manually through multiple reassignment. Well, okay, so now we learned how to import users, addresses, and stations into Inform Voice. With this, I thank you and see you in the next video.